It's my show, or like
Oh,
Adam's and my show. We're just, it's not started yet though. But in a few minutes, you're gonna want to be quiet,
I'm gonna want to be quiet.
unless you want to be on the show. In one and take two, just arrived. In one and take two, we're about to do the show, so you guys are gonna be quiet.
Practice on the piano or something.
I don't know. It's probably fine.
Good morning. Happy Easter. Happy 420. Happy Earth Day. Good Friday. Happy holidays.
Bicycle day.
It's me and Erica. We are experiencing a little bit of a delay this morning, some technical difficulties as always, but we're working through the kinks. Uh, we have a really good guest on today. I'm super excited about this. We have Nathan Clay running for Congress in the 7th District of Colorado. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing good. How are you today, Adam?
Very good. Very happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. A couple months ago, I was rolling around looking through Facebook and social media, checking out anybody running for Congress. And you didn't run last year, or did you?
No, I didn't. I was considering running as a progressive independent here, and especially when the incumbent decided he was going to actually leave the seat open and run for governor. But then pretty much a more established Democrat ran instead, so he decided to just sort of backtrack on those plans and keep his seat. So I just decided to continue to do the networking, continue to get out there and meet people, and launch a run this year.
Wonderful.
That's
Excellent.
great.
Excellent. Let's see. Erica, why don't you ask him a question or two?
All right. What's your what are some of the primary issues that you're running on?
Yeah, so good question. So number one is pretty much the obvious, which is campaign finance reform, because I just really don't see us being able to make any big progress on things like, Medicare for all or education policy or foreign policy or environmental policy, any of that stuff, without first solving the issue of practically all of our elected officials just accepting bribes from corporations. So as long as there's this legal system of bribery in place, we're really going to have a lot of trouble making any progress on these other big issues. So that's the number one thing for me. So after that, it would be, Medicare for all, tuition-free public education, ending the wars, and oh well, the Green New.
Wonderful.
Go ahead.
Erica,
Me, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Me?
Yeah, I'm just getting a delay. So I don't want to interrupt. I'm not sure if you were about to say.
Oh
I mean,
no,
I'll
it's
go ahead and
okay.
guess.
The delay is really definitely throwing me off. Campaign finance reform was actually one of the first things I was going to ask you about, and so it was nice to hear that it was like your primary issue. I couldn't agree more on that. But go ahead, Adam.
Okay. Well, so are you taking any money from corporations? Are you taking are you only individual contributions? Are you taking money would you take money from a union? What is your deal personally?
Right. So currently, we've only accepted donations from individuals. I don't intend to take any money from corporations. I actually will not take money from corporate interests. Um, and I haven't signed any pledge to that effect yet, but I wouldn't have any problem doing that if any of them were floated my way. I'd sign all the anti-corporate money pledges that I could find.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I
so
can send some your way.
yeah, absolutely.
No problem.
That'd be great. So let's see. Your question was, do we take any corporate money? Oh yeah, union money. Okay, so really, I'm not a big fan of any large money special interest being able to influence politics. However, I do see labor unions as being sort of an extension of just organized labor, of sort of people who need um, to be stood up for. So if I wouldn't have as many objections towards taking money from especially particular labor unions. But what I would like to see is a campaign finance reform amendment to the Constitution that would essentially eliminate corporate personhood and also make it so that only individuals can contribute to political campaigns. So that would, get in the way of labor unions as well. But we see a lot more money coming from, the oil and gas industry or banking industry, pharmaceuticals, health insurance companies. So overall, I think it'd be a net positive. But as it stands right now, I'm not as against labor money as I am against, oil and gas money. So there is a little bit of a difference there.
Sure. Can I ask you a quick question about your background? What do you have a background in politics, or is this something new for you? Where are you coming from?
Yeah, so basically, I'm coming from a lifelong activist sort of situation. I don't really have a background in politics very much. I've sort of been an observer or a spectator my whole life. I mean, obviously, when I was 13 years old, 9/11 happened, and then we had a whole bunch of wars and then a global financial meltdown. So it's just sort of in the blood of a lot of people of my generation to just pay attention and get involved. But it wasn't until Bernie Sanders ran in, his 2015, 2016 primary that I decided to say, wow, I really think people like me might have a chance, even though I don't have a background, even though I'm not established or anything like that. Bernie made me believe that all you really need to do is have good intentions and try as hard as possible, and you can actually have a chance. I'm not saying you're going to win for sure, but you can have a chance.
Right. Good
Love
answer. So when you say
grassroots,
exactly. And when you say have a chance, obviously, I'm 40 years old. I'm kind of new to politics myself. I've had a lot of people tell me, I'm learning, and I am learning. They're right. But last time around, I was paying real close attention, learning the ropes, talking to a lot of people running all over the nation, and I realized it's no joke. It's really, really, really hard. The chance of you winning is very, very slim. So what would you do? What are you going to do outside of the box or to make a difference in the 7th district to really stand out?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, basically, I'm just going to show the people that I have an unwavering commitment to progressive policies. I think that there's a lot of enthusiasm behind campaigns like ours right now, and it seems like the issue isn't really getting people excited about these particular solutions. It's just getting people to actually know that you're out there. But, I think that from the perspective of what are we going to do that's outside the box, we're going to actually stick up for people. We're going to talk about immigration policy reform. We're going to talk about healthcare policy reform. We're going to talk about, education, ending the wars, basically being one of the voices that stands against U.S. imperialism and corporate control of our foreign policy in the military industrial complex. I think that our message is, I wouldn't say radical, but it's outside the box enough that if people hear what we're talking about, I think that they're going to be down for the ride. Being one of the voices that stands against U.S. imperialism and corporate control of our foreign policy. I think that our message is,
Adam?
I'm still here.
I think we have some latency going on.
Excellent. That is really good. I'm glad to hear that you're going to stand out like that and really try to raise the younger crowd is something that I think you might be able to get good at. Hitting up the colleges. So you said a couple things you touched on right there. You said Medicare for all. I mean, you said healthcare, and then you said immigration policy. Can you touch on both of those for a moment or two? Tell me what you think about the healthcare and how you would change some things about the immigration.
Yeah, sure. So with healthcare policy, well, right now it should be pretty obvious to anyone paying attention that our entire healthcare system is set up to generate profits, not generate positive healthcare outcomes for individuals. It's designed by corporations and shareholders. So we need a Medicare for all policy that basically gets rid of private insurance. I'm on that side of the fence to say we need to completely get rid of private insurance. We don't need multiple tiered healthcare. We don't need to have networks, and we don't need to have these complicated decisions over, oh, should I take this insurance or should I take Medicare for all? Do I get to keep my doctor or anything? We really just need to bring some simplicity and stability to the healthcare system. And the Bernie Sanders Medicare for All plan really does just that. And it's extremely comprehensive. I mean, it covers everything from preventative care to dental, vision, and just it's very, very comprehensive. So I fully support that healthcare plan, and that is the healthcare plan that I'm campaigning on as well.
Can I ask a question on this real quick?
Yeah, totally.
One thing that constantly comes up, in fact, it even came up this morning in a conversation I was having with somebody, who's going to pay for it?
Well, everyone is going to pay for it in some way. So right now we have basically everyone contributes to the healthcare system already, whether it's through your premiums, through your deductibles, or through taxes. Everyone's already contributing. The issue that we see is that the middle class and working class people are paying an enormous majority of the nation's healthcare costs. So with the Medicare for All system, middle class, working class people would still be paying into the system. These people still pay taxes. They pay into the school system. They pay into the roads. So they would just be paying much less than they're paying now. The people who obviously would be financially impacted negatively by this would be the people who have millions of dollars in income a year, who have very, very, very high incomes. Right now, they're paying a very negligible amount of their income for healthcare costs, where the middle class pays a significant amount of their income.
Right.
So we would just kind of balance that out a little bit.
Right.
Great.
Percentage wise, I'm paying more percent, or the average person is paying more percent of their income if they're lower class, and then if you have more money, you're paying less percent right now.
Oh, big time. Yeah, there's something that's like $20,000 a year or more on average for a family of 4 health coverage annually. So that's an enormous amount of money for people who are have middle class jobs. Now people who make $10-15 million a year, they're paying the same amount. So that's essentially negligible for them.
Right. Good. Yeah. Good answer.
You also mentioned immigration policy.
Yes.
So on immigration, basically, this is a pretty complicated issue here because
it is.
People like to they like to politicize it a lot. They like to use it as this issue where we can cause animosity and be this wedge issue. But the first thing that I'd say about it is that we don't need to build a wall. That's obviously going to be an ineffective solution for this. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to cause a lot of chaos for the people on the southern border who have to deal with the eminent domain laws and all these sorts of court battles that are going to come up from it. And if you look at these statistics, it shows that the vast majority of undocumented folks in this country, they are overstaying visas, not crossing the border on foot, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So really what we need to do is we need to look at reforming the immigration system itself. So that would be streamlining the system, making it so that more people can come into this country legally every year so that they can live and work here legally. And at this point, we really need a path to citizenship for the folks who have been here playing by the rules for decades.
Right.
These people contribute an enormous amount to our society, an enormous amount to our economy. Really, if you look at the demographics in this country, especially with my generation not having a whole lot of children, if you look at our social policies, if you look at our economy, we are going to need a boost of people in this country so that we can maintain the economic growth and economic stability in a lot of our communities. So it's really the smart thing to do.
It seems as though there should be just a much more simpler, streamlined way of having immigrants enter this country. It seems like as it is right now, it's super a complicated, costly affair. When really, are you planning on like simplifying, like how do you plan on reforming immigration law?
Well, really, I think that we could use technology to get a lot done a lot faster. I think it's primarily that the government hasn't really been interested in doing any of this. They've pretty much wanted to make the immigration system as complicated, archaic, and useless as possible so that the people who do get trapped in it just have a bunch of negative things to say so they can dissuade people from even trying. So,
And
I
they
think,
need
I think,
politics,
what was that?
something to argue about.
Right. So really, I think that we could use technology to make this a whole lot easier to keep track of cases, and also, on top of this, we need to hire a whole lot more judges. That's one of the main things that's causing this system to be so dysfunctional. Is that, I mean, you've got so many of these cases going on that judges are only able to spend 15 minutes on a case sometimes, and they actually have, it's like a fast food restaurant line sometimes in immigration court where they just have people lined up and they're making decisions without even really paying attention.
Right.
And it just comes with this overwhelming sense that no one cares, that this is a huge problem that's affecting a lot of actual human beings' lives, and everyone in charge of the situation just doesn't seem to care at all. If you were to actually put the system in place with enough judges, with the proper technology, and if you just tried, just put any effort into it whatsoever, you could vastly, vastly improve the system.
Sure. I think technology is a huge part of it. I mean, we have all this technology that we're underutilizing in so many areas and possibly overutilizing in others. So,
Yeah, absolutely. They can
looks like
basically track all your emails and text messages, but they
sure,
can't
but we
they
can't
can't
figure
apply
this.
any effort
Right.
towards immigration court.
Yeah, I mean, you can go through Walmart without the checkout anymore. You just walk through. Or another new Amazon stores, you take the whole shopping cart, and it just,
Yeah.
it seems like
Yeah.
the thing about that is, okay, so I have another question for you, maybe a
Mhm.
little stumper, but so it seems like a lot of the stuff that everyone's suggesting, including yourself, is like a Band-Aid. But could you tell me why you think we're having this problem and how we could prevent? Where are these migrants coming from? Why are they flooding into the United States? How can we stop this from happening?
Right. So this is a really good question. This is a fun one to talk about. So basically, the United States has just the worst foreign policy that we've had for a long time. Now, part of this foreign policy has included basically utilizing the intelligence community, the CIA, and various other organizations to overthrow various different governments of a number of countries throughout Central and South America. So, this is basically because these countries either stood against our corporate policy or these countries decided to take a stand against the war on drugs. So, the United States has caused an incredible amount of chaos within Central and South America, whether it's El Salvador, Guatemala, the Dominican Republic. You can talk about what we tried to do in Cuba, what we've got going on in Venezuela right now. I mean, there's a litany of, humanitarian civil rights abuses that the United States has done. And also, I mean, really just the point that I'm trying to make here is that we have caused an incredible amount of chaos, an incredible amount of human suffering, not just in Central and South America, but throughout Asia and the Middle East, a lot of the world, really. And that's where these refugees are coming from. That's where this violence is coming from. That's where this poverty is coming from. It's that anytime a government stands up and says, we're going to say no to U.S. corporate policy, we're going to say no to the war on drugs, basically that government gets completely wiped out.
Right.
And then what happens? Terrorists rise up and take over the country, or drug cartels rise up and take over the country. They destabilize it. They wipe out all the important institutions of that country, plunges into chaos.
I'm Nathan Clay, and this is the New American.
I'm sorry, what?
I heard that too, but I'm not hearing anything now.
Oh, continue.
I don't know what that was.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, no, that was basically my point, that that if the United States and our allies would stand on the side of peace and anti-imperialism, then we would eliminate a lot of this refugee issue that's happening, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in the United States. That's what's causing this violence, and that's what's causing these refugees, is that we keep destabilizing the world.
Yeah, okay, good answer. So we need to
Right.
stop destabilizing the world.
Which is something that we've been doing since day one. So that'll be interesting to see how we stop doing that. I mean, that seems like so ingrained in who we are. Unfortunately, I'm not saying it's a positive. It'll be I think it'll be a struggle.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, but at the same time, I think that most people don't want endless perpetual war. They don't want
True.
so much money to be going towards the military industrial complex, towards
Right.
violence. They don't like turning on the TV and seeing a bunch of
Right.
countries get bombed and all this stuff. So I think that we could make the case to the American people that, we shouldn't be doing this. We should stand on the side of peace and on the side of stability. And, now with the internet being out, it's not as easy to control the information that the American people see. It's not as easy to propagandize and to lie, because
Right.
there will be an alternative view out there. Kind of like what this
Right.
show is doing. That helps. It helps get people to see, hey, maybe this doesn't represent my values or my interests at all. Maybe sometimes we've been the bad guy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
And
wonder.
maybe
I think even just
we could even
educating.
go as far as saying maybe we were trying to do it in good intentions. Maybe some people really did think all these regime changes and what we were doing was the way to save the world. It's kind of hard to talk. I was talking to a couple people in my family about it yesterday, who were like, we can't just sit back and watch everyone get killed. We can't watch genocides. And I was kind of explaining, the second you give them a way in, then they'll make those things happen. But at the same time, I came to the conclusion that, like, because I was talking to people that are really big in science. And I was like, so when the National Geographic goes out and films the penguins, and you see a bunch of the penguins getting killed for whatever reason, they're not supposed to get involved. That's the rule 101 is science. Number one, don't get involved. Don't save the animals. Don't save the baby deer from being eaten by the lamb. That is part of what's happening. So these other societies are not maybe as evolved as us, but we need to let them evolve in their own way. And yeah, people are going to die, but everyone's going to die. That's another rule you can't change.
Well,
I think.
I somewhat agree with that. My stance is more like, the United States and our allies have an enormous amount of influence throughout the world. Now, it seems like if you look at our actions, like we only have one tool, and that's our military. But that's not true. The United States actually has, the most sophisticated arsenal of diplomatic tools that the world has ever seen. We just immediately jump to using violence and aggression. But I think that a lot of situations throughout the world, with a calm hand and a steady head, you could really solve a lot of these things diplomatically. You could bring people together. We could be a voice of reason, and we could be a voice of peace. I mean, if we were absolutely committed to it, we have enormous amount of influence, enormous amount of power in this world, and not even including our military. Like, that's even not even including the amount of bombs or nuclear weapons that we have. I think that a lot of times, we really underestimate the power of diplomacy, the power of the spoken word, just the ability to bring people together. And and I think that I'd like to see us try that, at least, like, let's not jump right away to the bombs and the guns and the aircraft carriers. Let's try diplomacy a little bit. I don't see anything wrong with that.
I think that's ideal, and I think that the best way to solve problems is to have everybody come to the table and use their intelligence, and that is something that we don't see very much anymore. And I believe it has to do, with the military-industrial complex. It's $1 billion industry. Nobody's going to try and come and use their intellect to discuss how to, handle or solve problems or issues when there's so much money, so much profit in war, that I think that one way is to really, and I think a lot of Americans aren't aware of how much, people are in their little bubble, and and they hear what's being told on the news and they believe that without a second thought. And it's like maybe trying to bring all of that to light, and having more Americans realize, hey, people are profiting off of this, and it's not us. We're not the ones profiting,
Right.
but other people are. It's like that needs to be highlighted. People need to know and see that and see where trace the money. Like follow the money.
Absolutely.
It's right there. It's not hard to follow the lines.
Yeah, absolutely.
It needs to not be sequestered. It has to be out there. People have to get that information, but there's so much money behind it that it's hard to get that information out.
Right.
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Has to be protected.
Totally. And there's I think I saw something recently that said that I think $32 million an hour has been spent on our global effort for war since the war started, like 19 years of $32 million an hour. So if you want to follow the money, there's a lot of money to follow. And like you said, it's not going into any of our hands. But the thing is that, unfortunately, there's an interesting layer on top of this in that almost all the military industrial complex jobs are spread out to be sort of distributed among all of the congressional districts. So, if you were to stand against war, and if you were to cut the military budget, you're essentially sacrificing jobs in your own district. So they've set it up so that it will be politically divisive and controversial and difficult for anybody to even say, hey, maybe we shouldn't make more Tomahawk missiles because, hey, turns out some of the sensors for that missile are made in your district. So you're going to be sacrificing some jobs. So they've done it in practically every district throughout the nation so that every single congressperson is, has some level of pain towards defunding the military industrial complex.
Wow.
That's interesting. I didn't know anything about that.
That's crazy.
I never knew that. But
Yeah,
it makes plenty of sense.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a smart move by some despicable people.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So
the intelligence is there. We can absolutely solve our issues with intellect.
Right.
We're smart enough, but we're also greedy enough.
Yeah.
Our society has a huge greed problem. Probably the number one.
So we've gone over the war. So you're saying regime change is one of the reasons why we're having immigration problems. Maybe we could solve crises around the world, other methods besides the military. We've talked a little bit about Medicare for all, your 100% no insurance policies. Right on. You understand that that's the only way it's going to ever work. How about this Green New Deal?
Yeah, so, when it comes to the Green New Deal, I think it's basically pretty obvious to everybody in our society that, if you look 30, 40, 50 years into the future, you're going to see primarily electric cars. You're going to see primarily, clean energy generation. People are aware that these are facts, but then when it comes to supporting the policies that would get us there, some of them are a little apprehensive because there's an incredible amount of change.
Right.
But really, the Green New Deal is just a metaphor in some way of just saying that we embrace modern technology. Modern technology for transportation, modern technology for energy creation, modern technology for city planning. We embrace modern technology.
Right.
I think that a lot of the details of what the Green New Deal would look like exactly are a little bit murky right now.
Right.
But it's obviously just a multi-billion-dollar investment in our future, in future technology, in electric vehicles, clean energy, and high-speed rail, and the things that basically every advanced nation on the planet right now is rolling all of this stuff out, is developing all of this stuff. And basically every person who lives in advanced society says, well, yeah, it's obvious that this is the way that the economy is going. This is the way society is going. No one's going to be surprised that their kids are going to be driving electric cars 25 years from now. That just seems like an obvious common sense thing. The Green New Deal is just kind of like how we get there, how we get there in a society that is currently dominated by oil and gas and by the establishment, the way things are. We need to do things differently. more of like the way things are going to be as opposed to the way things are today. And that's what this is an investment in. It's an investment in the way that things will be. No matter if we make the Green New Deal formal policy or not, these things are going to happen. Now, the unfortunate thing is that they might not happen quickly enough to save the planet and our environment from incredible damage first. That's the main thing that the Green New Deal is doing. It's not making these things possible. It's just making them possible faster so that we can get them done on time for them to really have a positive impact.
Right. Yeah. I mean, me and Erica, when we grew up, we were told that we were going to have flying cars and hoverboards as well. But the problem was we didn't have a Green New Deal. So we're still driving gas guzzlers in the year 2019.
Yeah, right. Well,
it seems like we're falling behind.
We absolutely are. The amazing thing, though, is that, technology has advanced so much over the last 30 years. What was pretty much impossible a few decades ago is commonplace today. So, like a lot of these things are really within our grasp now. None of this is science fiction. None of this is going to be some sort of like moonshot, or none of it's the equivalent of the difficulty of landing on the moon. We're basically just talking about adopting technology that exists today, a technology that even other countries have already adopted. Japan's high-speed rail system, kills our rail system.
Right. Honestly, the high-speed rail, one of the biggest things I'm going to try to push in Oregon here, and you're in Colorado, you guys could use one of those.
Yeah.
From Boulder to Springs or whatever, Colorado Springs, like that's a good haul.
Yeah, well, and just in general, I mean, have you ever tried to get anywhere on a train? Have you ever?
Yes. I've driven across the country on one.
Like, just compared to flight right now, there's just no comparison. It's like it's more costly, takes like 4 times as long. It's crazy. Our train systems, are just pathetic compared to what we have or what we see throughout the world. Really we need to make that a lot more competitive. The comparison between train travel and plane travel, because I've traveled quite a bit all over the place, and as much as I'd like to take a train, it's almost sometimes you just literally can't. It's like you'll get there a day later than you need to be at your event.
Right.
That's one thing that blows my mind. The fact that you go around the world and you see high speed, trains and they're efficient, and you come here, you go to New York City for a day. I mean, it's absurd. And again, that I feel like is just pure corruption. I mean, we have the ability, we have the brains in this country, we have the money in this country to have a high rail system. The fact that we don't is it's just screaming corruption to me.
Yeah.
I mean, New York City is a disaster as far as transportation, and there's so many people trying to get to work, and it's a joke. It's a joke.
Absolutely.
And the joke is on us. I mean, it's like.
And what really kind of annoys me is when people say, oh, other countries can do it, but they're smaller than we are, or
No.
they have less. Well, the thing is that America has the most innovative, most powerful, most wealthy economy in the world. If they can do it, we can do it. We can, and in a lot of situations, we have the capacity to actually do it better, and we have the capacity to learn from a lot of other people, the mistakes that they've made and the successes that they've had. So, I mean, I think that these things that we see around the world, it's not more difficult for America to pull these things off. We actually have more capacity to pull these things off here. So it's absolutely ridiculous that we are lagging behind the world when it comes to practically every important investment we could be making: education, healthcare, infrastructure, everything.
We should be paving the way, and the fact that we're not is just sad.
100%. By example.
Yeah, we have the capacity and capability, and honestly, historically, America has led the world in almost all of these things, and it wasn't really up until probably shortly before or at the presidency of Ronald Reagan that all started to go the other direction and say that America leads the world in corporate profits. in the concentration of wealth, but we're not going to lead the world anymore in, you know, infrastructure and healthcare and education. But those
Right.
things, America has historically been a world leader in all of those things. Now it's basically, you know, income inequality and number of people in jail. Those are the things that we've got.
Right.
Yeah. So we've talked about that. So I got two more questions for you. Here's this other one.
And then I have one more question.
Okay,
too.
great.
Oh,
So
when you can go ahead first.
okay, so we have a minimum wage problem. I want to hear what you think, how we're going to figure the economy that way. And on that same aspect, we're talking about technology, and it seems like we're losing jobs. And you did mention immigration. We need immigrations to fill those jobs. But if we're getting more immigration in, which I don't think is a bad problem, but we need to figure out how to do it, and we're losing jobs to technology, how can we assure the American public in the next 30 years that there will be plenty of jobs? Or is that the answer? Or what do you think about it?
Right. So, all right. So I would say that in the short term, really, I think that we're going to, if we can accomplish what we're trying to accomplish, I think that we're actually going to see a shortage of labor and over the next few years. And why I say that is because how many jobs will the Green New Deal produce? I mean, that's millions. How many jobs will Medicare for All produce? I mean, you don't think that induced demand for healthcare services will increase too many jobs? Because I do. I think there's a lot of people right now who aren't going to the doctor. There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people right now who are completely not involved with the healthcare system. We're talking 30, 40 million people with no insurance. I mean, I think that if we bring those people into the system, we're gonna see jobs. So building out our infrastructure, building out our healthcare system, investing in education, these are things that they impact the demand side of the curve. So and right now we have a static amount of supply, but we're going to see an increase in demand. So you're going to have to hire people to meet that, to have equilibrium there. So I actually think that we're going to see, if we get these progressive jobs policies passed, if we can reform some of our trade deals, we're going to see American jobs being created. Now, that doesn't negate your point that things like automation and 3D printing and artificial intelligence are also going to be eliminating jobs. So, you know, I think that it makes sense to look at something like a federal jobs program, a jobs guarantee, something along those lines, that so that we could say that every single person in America will be living with dignity. If you put some effort in, we're going to guarantee that you'll have a job that can support you. And I think that there's a lot of capability to care not only for our environment but for people. You know, especially the boomer generation is aging. There's a lot of jobs that you could create around helping these people live more independently. Basically, every park you go to is full of garbage. There's a lot of jobs you could have where you could clean up the trash from the parks and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of beneficial jobs you could have here that would actually really help. You know, they're not just nothing jobs. These would actually have an impact on our planet, on our people, and on our future. So I think it makes sense to do that. And then way off in the future, you know, when I'm like Bernie's age or something, we might see something like universal basic income or something. But I think that that's going to be, you know, you're going to have to see a big transformation of our society, not only psychologically, but technologically.
Right. You're looking forward. That's progressive.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's what it's all about. You know, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done to solve the problems that we're facing right now, but there's 10 times more work to be done on solving the problems we're going to see tomorrow. You know, so really, I think that should be the main job of our politicians is, I mean, obviously we got to take care of what's going on right now, but really these big problems we're going to be seeing 10, 15, 20 years from now, these are the ones that are going to potentially destroy us if we don't pay attention. So, you know, I think that one big problem in our political system is that we're always looking back. We're always looking in the past and trying to fix blame for problems and say, oh, it's your fault. Oh, it's your fault. But no one's looking into the future to say, well, who cares whose fault it is? This is an enormous problem that's going to destroy us. And start working on solutions right now. So that, I think it's really important to do that, and you don't see it almost at all.
All right, Erica.
My question is what totally off everything we've been discussing so far. What advice would you give to someone to a young person who might have interest in becoming political, such as yourself? Like, what steps would you advise?
Man, that's a great question. I'd say you gotta. My only advice would be just, follow your heart, stay true to yourself. Don't sell out your values to anybody for any reason. Like, whether it's for money, whether it's for fame, whether it's for power, it doesn't matter. You got to stay true to yourself, to the values that got you in this in the first place, and just be 100% passionate. Put every single ounce of energy that you have into this, whether or not you really think that you've got a shot at winning. The important thing is that you just really, really focus as much as you can and try as hard as possible. And I can't really give immensely good advice. I haven't won any elections or anything yet, so take anything I say with a grain of salt on that. But I would say that you're gonna increase your chances of having a positive outcome if you just always stay true to yourself. Don't compromise for any reason on your values, and just be thoroughly 100% dripping with passion. That's the thing. That's what wins people over. That's what you can, if you are genuine and authentic and you're yourself at every opportunity, and you're not focus group tested or trying to say this to these people and say that to these people and being wishy-washy or anything like that.
Sure.
You're gonna have the best possible outcome for yourself. So just passion and integrity.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Awesome. I will say a little thing to that. Also, like you kept saying, and I love the fact that you kept saying, even if you're not going to win, even if you just try. The thing is, it's not always about winning. It's about changing the narrative. It's about opening people's eyes. And I think you're going to do wonderful at that. If you don't win, which I have a lot of faith in you. You're passionate. You know your shit. Like I've interviewed a bunch of people last year that like I had to explain to a lot of people, like, you can't say access to affordable health care. Right. They didn't know their wording and stuff. You're saying everything correctly. You've been paying attention. You know what you're talking about. So I think you got a really good chance, and we're going to support you all the way.
Oh, well, I really appreciate that. And to further elaborate on your point, there's sort of an old, civil rights activist expression that's something along the lines of that you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution, right? So that's really how I see this, is that, we might not win this battle, but this is about the war, and this is about winning that war. And that really, I think the turning point of the war was Bernie Sanders' primary in 2016. That's when so many people's eyes opened. That's when so many people got involved. So, I'm not saying that this battle that we're fighting here is the most important battle, but this war that we're fighting here is everything. And so I'm in it to win it, but at the same time, I'm helping other people too. I'm going to be involved in this no matter how this campaign goes.
Wonderful.
Great.
Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you
absolutely.
for doing it.
Oh yeah, no
stepping
problem.
up to the challenge.
Yeah, I'm having a great time with it. I'm really, really passionate about progressive policies, and now I have an excuse to talk about it 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it sounds like you can.
Oh yeah, I appreciate it. I really do. I really do. This is actually the first time I've done sort of a live stream podcast thing. So
cool.
I'm really
tons
glad
more coming your way.
Oh yeah, and feel free to invite me on here again. A couple months from now or whatever. I'd love to.
Sure.
Yeah, you know what? We'll invite you on again. I would love to do that. We'll also put your name out to a couple other people that might want to have you on their shows as well.
Great. Yeah. That'd be perfect. That'd be awesome. Yeah. I'd love that.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on, Nathan. We're going to let you go because you're a busy man. It's Easter, so thanks, and we'll have you on again soon and check in on you, okay?
Fantastic. Sounds good.
Yes.
It was nice meeting you.
Oh yeah, it was really great talking to all of you today, and I just once again really appreciate you having me on. It was a blast. I really enjoyed it. So
thank you.
I'd love to be on again sometime.
Oh, we'd love to have you.
We'd love to have you again.
All right.
Inspirational, man.
Happy Easter.
Wow.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks for what you guys are doing too. We really need this. This is important.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, that's Nathan Clay running the 7th District of Colorado. He's going to take off, and me and Erica have about 5 more minutes here just to talk to each other, see how it's going, say Happy Easter.
Easter.
It's happy. What is that? Did you say?
Easter.
Eoyster. Eoyster. Sounds like oyster. What is that?
She is the goddess of dawn.
Ah, dawn. Perfect.
Of light, dawn, the return of light.
The
Yes,
return
the
of
goddess
light.
of dawn, and that's in old pagan tradition,
Oh,
or actually Indo-European, Germanic.
oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's an egg is the new beginning too. We're going over that with the kids yesterday. I was like, the egg symbolizes birth.
Yep.
So the
Relife
oyster is
or
the
rebirth.
female of dawn.
Dawn. Yep.
Yeah, and it
I think
does tie in.
traditionally it was more in sync with the equinox, with the spring equinox, that when the
Okay,
the return, yeah, and of course it's been adopted now by other, in different religions. It's evolved over time, but it used to be like a celebration on the vernal equinox, and to celebrate life and the return of life, symbolized with the egg, and also with the hare was the hare, the rabbit was a symbol of.
see, that is nuts because if you break down Christianity, then Jesus had the long hair and he was born again to symbolize being life. Like,
Yes,
either that's just a crazy coincidence or that's how they got the story.
sure.
I don't know how it exactly works, but they're like so similar with that.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's fun to kind of just like look back at the origins of all of our holidays. I mean, a lot of them are religious holidays, but really they started before the organized religions
Right.
adopted them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
But people don't
Christianity.
know that. People
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
Christianity brought on. I know that's true. They don't. They adopted. I think a big reason why they adopted a lot of the pagan things is to keep the pagan people into the Christian religion, like incorporate it so people, because we we're atheists, but we celebrated Easter and
Where did I go? Hold on, there we go. Okay.
Yeah, so we celebrated Easter and Christmas, even though my mom was an atheist because, it's America and Christmas was Santa Claus and Easter Bunny. I didn't know the Easter Bunny had anything to do with Jesus or pagan.
Or pagan. Well, so can I just tell you real quick? Actually, the painted Easter egg was
Yeah.
So there was a goddess Eoster, and
Okay.
on the day of the festivities of the return of, or the return of life, the hare, the symbol of life, would paint an egg and decorate the egg and bring in as an offering to the goddess, which is where the painted eggs came from, supposedly, is the story. It was an offering to the goddess Eoster.
Ah, no, the hair, you mean the rabbit hair, like the bunny.
The rabbit hair.
Ah.
Oh, now I understand.
Shows what I know.
Long hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hair, like the rabbit hair.
Yeah, gotcha. And they painted the eggs and offered them to the goddess.
Yes.
Why is the rabbit? I always wondered, why is the rabbit eggs? Rabbits don't lay eggs.
Rabbits don't lay eggs, right? No, but they're both symbolic to life. And
Well, the bunnies make lots of babies in spring.
they do. So supposedly the hare, all of a sudden found an egg, and the hare was so used to eating grass all the time, so it found this egg, and it was so excited to have so it grabbed the egg and it ran away, but instead of eating it, it decorated it and beautified, made it beautiful and gave it as an offering to the goddess. Yeah.
Okay. That's funny. Oh, so the hare's offering it to the goddess Eoster.
Eoster. Yeah.
There you go. Cool.
Cool.
Well,
Right?
that's our little Easter tidbit Erica shared with us. Everybody, thanks for coming on, seeing our show. Really appreciated having Nathan on today.
Yeah,
It
that
was
was great.
so we jumped down and just did a quick little thing. We don't have our normal show, but next week we're going to be back and we're going to have a big full show ahead for everybody. And tomorrow I got Brian Cheeseman joining me to do some Medicare for All Monday. So check us out then. And we're going to get, I know I've been thinking all week, Erica, you talked about the gear. So
Oh yeah.
let's talk about getting that together this week.
Okay, sounds great.
All right. Everyone have a great day. Happy holidays.
Peace.
ECSN Live.